Okay, should we start? Thanks ever so much for coming along. At such short notice. I had a compliance RIBI meeting. Can I mute you all because I can hear myself 3 or 4 times? Okay, I've muted everybody. If you want to speak, you can unmute yourselves. If you press spacebar or the spacebar's down, you can talk. When you take your finger off, it will mute again. When we get in, we'll have a bit more of a free-for-all. So yeah, we had an RIBI compliance meeting last week, and I was expecting a number of documents to come through by now, because we did impress upon them that it's really quite, people are now moving towards face-to-face meetings and would like a bit more guidance. So I haven't had that, but let me just put up on the screen the still 1 or 2 more people coming in, so perhaps I'll just wait a minute. Okay.
Martin, Nigel Brooks here. Can I just ask if you're proposing to circulate these presentations afterwards?
Yes, I am recording it, so I can send a video link. But certainly, this document that you can see now is the one that came out in June, so you should have all seen that. A number of people have been asking me whether there's going to be anything new, and they're a bit worried that this document, which is the statement from the General Council, stopped people doing face-to-face meetings, and it doesn't stop people at all. I mean, all it's saying is you need to follow the regulations, and in June, of course, there were actual regulations on face coverings and social distances, but that's now gone. So if the next release of this should have all that information taken out. So this thing about the groups of 6 and gathering people outside 30, I mean, obviously that doesn't apply anymore as of last Monday. So I think that will be the only change that comes out of that document. So it's saying you're free to do face-to-face meetings, but you need to be considerate about other people and also do risk assessments and just be careful. So just wanted to clarify that for people. Are there any questions on that document? Has everybody seen the June one?
Yeah, Martin, that's also on the actual RIBI website in the actual every section.
Yeah. So it just goes through suggesting that you don't rush into face-to-face meetings, but this was June, of course. But I have asked them, say, to release an updated one, so this is no longer on the record, as it were. Okay, so how many clubs have actually started face-to-face meetings?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so that was that one. The one I really want to do I was really hoping to have is the one on the checklist So this is one that we were discussing last week. The actual document we were looking at last week was not exactly the same as this, but I have taken all the points. So this is just a checklist. It's not a risk assessment, and it's for people. Primarily, I think, for people who are moving into a new venue. But I think it's probably worthwhile people who are still in existing venues to look at it and see whether they are, whether there's anything in there that they haven't got in place. I think the expectation for venues is that they all have risk assessments, and it's quite imperative that clubs actually get a hold of it. And it's a bit more than just having it in the desk. You need to familiarise yourselves with it, so you know how the venue is treating COVID, because that's still very relevant. So it's still a legal obligation for venues to have a risk assessment. It includes COVID. And I think it's probably still a legal requirement, or at least an expectation, that clubs have do risk assessments if they are having meetings or events. So that's still in place. That hasn't been taken out of the regulations, and that's not been made that clear, I don't think. So we need to do risk assessments. We need to look at the venue's risk assessment, and I don't think you need to reinvent the venue's risk assessment, but there may be things on there. There may be things in there that you think should be there and aren't there, that you can put in, and also about going to meetings and things like that. So I think we still need to say to people, if you're feeling unwell or have COVID symptoms, don't attend an event or don't attend a meeting. So things like that still should be in place. Item D there, can you all see it, by the way?
Yeah.
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 Item D. Is that Maureen had a question?
At item C, I was interested to know from other clubs whether they had facilities for having face-to-face meeting and also have it available online, because I understand that's quite difficult and I don't think our club would be able to do it. But I was quite interested to see if other clubs were doing it. That's item C.
This is what, have you considered making the meeting accessible?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an aspiration to do that, but actually technically it's quite difficult if you want to do it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people think it's very easy because you just go into your venue with a laptop and do your Zoom from the venue. But the problem is, if you have a roundtable discussion, you won't pick up the comments.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. I've done that even with a much smaller meeting. It doesn't work very well. And also, there's the question of having these facilities in a place that you only use once a week, that's open to other people all the time. I know big organisations can do it,
Yeah.
but I don't know that small clubs can.
I agree with you. I'm not, I think we said at the last Zoom meeting that think very carefully about it, because it's not quite as easy as it says it is. I think it works reasonably well if you have a speaker and there's one person talking and doing a presentation, and then everybody in the room and everybody on Zoom can hear. But once you get into question time, unless you've got a good microphone, it doesn't work. You agreeing, Nigel?
Yeah, we are planning to start them from the 2nd of August, and we're lucky enough to have somebody who used to do this for a business, and he says the key is to be able to have a roving microphone that you can take around to each speaker to pass it on, and then he says it should work well enough. And obviously speakers attached to the PC or laptop so that you can amplify the messages. So that's what we're planning. I can let you know how it goes.
Yeah. I mean, I have put I've put Zoom through an amplifier, not an ordinary speaker system, and that works reasonably well. But and if people aren't used to a roving microphone, they've got 3/4 of the way through the question before the microphone's. But yeah, it's all good fun, but it's worth a try.
I will say good evening, gentlemen, but unfortunately my camera's decided to pack up on me.
Okay.
So you can talk to me, but you won't be able to see me. Lucky you.
No, we weren't going to say anything, Chris. Carol, did you want to say something?
Just to share our experience to date, Martin, at Bournemouth, we had our first face-to-face lunch meeting on Monday. And it went well. We've been using the hotel. We meet in a hotel, and we've been using the hotel for some time. And we discussed with them what our requirements were, which are tables more than 1 metre apart for seating, plenty of hand sanitizers, etc. And an expectation that everyone would wear masks in the public areas. And it went very well, and we didn't have any members who weren't willing to come using those arrangements. Now, we meet every fortnight for lunch. We also have evening meetings without a meal. And again, it's making sure social distancing, etc. And when we have a committee meeting, the committee members themselves have made a decision on whether they want to meet face-to-face or whether they want to continue with Zoom. So we have a bit of a hybrid, some committee meetings, face-to-face, and others still with Zoom. And we'll see what happens in the future about that. So all in all, we've had a good start without any complaints or issues from members, and we've got 40+ members.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Anybody else?
Yeah, from the point of view of Highcliffe, Martin, we had our President's Night slightly delayed last Thursday at the Lord Bute. Went absolutely perfectly. The health and safety side of it and the compliance side of it were totally as required by the hotel, went like a dream. And we've actually got our first face-to-face club meeting tomorrow evening at the golf club. And again, they've told us what we want to do. We put it into the risk assessment and the compliance statement, and just hope that everybody obeys it when they get there tomorrow night.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I think if you've got a venue that's trying to put things into place, it's really good. Is anybody struggling with a venue that's not willing to, wants to go free for all? Yeah. That's good. I think, John, you've got your hand up. Is that right? Let's see.
You're muted, John.
I can't see him.
Gotcha, yeah. Apologies. Is that better?
Yeah.
Right, well, we've got a meeting this evening that I'll be going down to shortly after 7. Can I just ask, you may have covered this already, Martin, will slides be available, and when do you expect to receive the next update from RGBI?
Oh, okay. So, you missed that. I was expecting it by today. That's why I called the meeting today, but I haven't. So we're just going through it. On the general council statement, just to summarise, we expect that to stay very much the same, except taking out the regulation, the legal bits. But it's really what we're talking about now is how you still operate, being careful about COVID. And, okay, so I'm going to mute you all again because it's getting a lot of feedback. Okay, I was just talking about item D as well, that it's quite important that you tell your members what you're doing, what procedures are in place before they arrive. It's no good telling them when they arrive that they shouldn't be there if don't feel well. It's a bit late. And also it's just helpful, I think, if they know what to expect. And as Carol was saying about, if you're expecting people to wear masks, which I think is great in public places, it's just useful for them to know that before they arrive, so they bring one and things like that. So again, it's just a case of being considerate and communicating, I think. Yeah. And item D is pretty much on the same lines. Track and trace is still in place. I don't know how many people have been pinged and told to isolate. That's becoming a little bit of a problem. I've had to isolate once. Ironically, I think I got my contact when I was helping at a vaccination centre, and I was looking after the Pfizer people who had to wait 15 minutes. And the 15 minutes is the magic time that you have to be in close proximity to somebody to count as a contact. So I thought, if they'd made it 14 minutes and cleared and gone before, then I probably wouldn't have got pinged. But there we go. So it can be quite disruptive. I think a lot of people are being quite careful at the moment, and certainly until August the 16th. They don't have to self-isolate. Okay. So I think that's what we've been talking about, the sanitizing, masks, the general procedures. And then it goes on to some more specific things about provision for people with disabilities. And this is just general risk assessments. And it's a good opportunity if you've got a new venue or you're going back to one after a certain break, that you can start asking some of these questions. It's just a case of going through them, and some of them may not be necessary, but some might be, and you might think, oh, that would be a good idea. Disabilities. Fire and evacuation procedures, I'm sure you should all have those in place. I don't know how many clubs, when they have a speaker or visitors or anything, actually announce the safety announcements. Some clubs do. I think one of the difficulties is when you meet on a regular basis, you tend not to think it's necessary, but it's quite easy to be in a place for a long time without actually realizing how do you get out if you need to get out. And same with first aid. Who are the first aiders, and do you have first aiders? So really, it's just a checklist. This could be worth asking your venue, if you're going to take a laptop to do one of these hybrid meetings, whether the venue is expecting you to have a pat test on your electrical equipment you bring into the venue. Some venues are very strict about that. Obviously, their insurance will depend on things being pat tested and things like that. So it's just one of those things to be aware of. Food hygiene, is there a food rate, the rating displayed in the kitchen? probably can't see it, but Hassett there has been, I grayed that out. This is one of the questions they put in the RIBI meeting last week. And I thought, if you actually start asking your venue about those kind of details, it turns into more of an audit than just an information type thing. So I think if they've got a license from a local authority to serve food, that's the conditions in which they do that really is between the local authority and themselves. Quite nice if they've got a hygiene certificate. And also, one of the original questions in this checklist was, are food safe cleaning materials available? Well, again, you know, it's between the venue and the authorities and their risk assessment. Are there any questions on any of these type of things? We're all fairly familiar with it. Yeah. And then obviously good housekeeping, car parking and insurance. Now, insurance keeps on coming up. And I did ask Amanda last week about insurance, and she was going to issue a clarification about insurance, because a number of people have been asking if we go to a venue and it turns out that one of the Rotarians may have had COVID and passed it on, are we insured? And the answer is no. Mainly because it's one of those things that's almost impossible to prove who actually caught COVID from. This has been somewhat of an issue for some people. We're expecting to be insured for that. But the insurance company is quite clear that there is no way they can actually definitively say who you caught COVID from if you catch it. Has that been an issue for anybody? Otherwise, the insurance is, is the same, is unchanged. Just the thing about risk assessments, though, because the risk assessment is a legal requirement. I think if you haven't got a risk assessment and something goes wrong, then the insurance company could turn around and say, well, we haven't got a risk assessment. So it's kind of just to be aware of that. It's quite easy to think that it's not a legal requirement, but it absolutely is a legal requirement at the moment for organisations that are organising meetings and things. So is there anything else, any things on that you think ought to be added? Because this was a document that was put together. Georgina, so I can unmute you.
Oh, right, okay. Is there a new assessment form for us, or do we use the old one?
Just use the old one. It's the same. Yeah.
The only point I would like to raise, Martin, is on your business, the bit did about fire and the statement at the beginning of a meeting. I wonder how many people require and realise it is actually a legal requirement to do it.
Yeah.
Under the fire safety regulations orders.
Yeah. How many people do it?
Oh, we do every meeting. In fact, I've just rewritten it for the club for tomorrow night. And we also do it for every venue we meet at.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. Because if anything does happen, then you haven't done it. Well, it's surprising that certainly with COVID, some venues may well have changed their evacuation procedures. I know of one place that had to change it because it wasn't a safe way of doing it. But yeah.
Martin, what you say? You said that the need for risk assessment is a legal requirement. Is
Yeah.
that right, strictly speaking? I can see that it's going to be fundamental for an insurance claim. Is it a legal requirement? As
Well, it comes under, it's, for employers it is, all right? For employers it is legal and required to have one that includes COVID. And that hasn't changed. And I think it's a moot point whether a charity that's organising an event or an organisation, service organisation, I think there's an expectation that they would be counted as an employer. Don't know whether there'd be, Chris might be able to give me some idea on that, but I think it's one of those things which is better to be safe than sorry. But
Well, I think one of the things is, Martin, you have to take in mind the whole basis of the Health and Safety at Work Act, and that is the risk assessment is our demonstrating our duty of care to those who are attending, whether they be members of the club or visitors or what. And it's our duty of care to make sure that we are doing everything for them. And thus, yes, it does become a legal requirement.
yeah. It's just a moot point about the employers, isn't it? But I think, I say these days, there's very little difference between a charity or a service organisation and an employer. I think we have to follow the same regulations.
Well, if you look at it, Martin, HASWA doesn't differentiate between an employer or a charitable organisation, because basically it is saying that it doesn't matter who you are. Like Rotary, we have a duty of care to everybody to look after them.
Yeah, I agree. Derek, you've got a hand up?
We're in the sad situation where our venue isn't open for a chef because I haven't got any chefs. The question I have for those who've already started meetings, have you had any problem getting the risk assessment from the venue? Are they reluctant to give it to you, or are they quite happy to give it out?
Anybody got an answer?
But yes, again, it's the old age case of the venue has a duty to give it to you, if only to make sure that you comply with it, or that if by complying with it, you're not endangering your own members.
Yeah. We've been provided with a copy of our meeting places venue at Ringwood, and they've from that developed a protocol for anyone visiting the venue, which they posted on their website. So it's actually that's pretty good system.
They were asked, weren't they, right at the beginning of COVID, to put their risk assessments and things on websites as much as Yeah. I mean, I think if you're going to a venue that shows any reluctance to pass on your risk assessment, I would start looking for another venue. No, but you know, it's a fairly serious thing, isn't it? And I think I put an extra. I put an extra word in this on my own here. Is obtain a copy and familiarise yourself with it. It's not just getting a copy; it's actually using the copy and understanding what the risk assessment is telling you, and adding things if that you feel necessary. But it's no good getting the risk assessment and putting it in a drawer somewhere. So I've ticked that box because you don't know what's written. You haven't ticked any boxes, basically. Carol, do you want to just say something?
I think it's when you've been using a venue for some considerable time, then you build up a relationship and trust. No, I say trust. You're still looking at their risk assessment. You don't have that on trust, but you build up a trust in general about expectations on each other, and you feel more comfortable once you've seen the proof. You feel more comfortable. I think it's more of an issue where you use a venue for the first time, say another hotel, for a social event, as we did for the President's Evening last Friday. So it was a barbecue in inverted commas. It wasn't really a barbecue. It was just food. Yeah, we hadn't used it before, and our compliance officer checked the risk assessment, etc. But somehow you never feel as comfortable because this is the first time you've used that those premises. That's all I'm saying. It's just yeah.
Thank you for that. Well, I'll put the opposite. Well, not. I'll put another view forward as well. Is that if you haven't had a risk assessment from your venue, now's a great chance to ask for it because of COVID and things. So if you haven't got one, here's your opportunity to say, look, we really need to see it. But hopefully you've all seen it. Maureen, are you got your hand up?
Can I go back to the fire regulations? Because one thing that concerns me, although it's never happened, thank goodness, we actually meet in a room that's got the fire door. We come in through the fire escape door and go out to it. What the organisations never seem to do is actually have muster stations, because if there were, God forbid there was to be a fire, you'd leave through the door. I would hope that our club would make sure that everybody had left, because it's a very easy exit for us. But there really should be denoted a place where you go to if there's a fire, because if people are milling out in great numbers, then the fire engine is restricted and so on. And I think that's what lots of places are remiss, where they're remiss, because they show fire exits, but they don't tell people where to go to.
Yeah. Well, that's on.
And of course, with the Rotary Club, you can't have a practice. It's not feasible, really.
Well, has anybody had a practice? I've often thought it'd be a good idea to have one, actually.
Well, yes, so do I. But
no, it's not a. There are lots of places where you think, oh, shouldn't we be having a practice? But I don't think there's anywhere where it would be. You should not do it because of some sensitivity. You know, even if you're in a church or something, you still should do one if it's.
All I would say, Martin, is if somebody has got an area where the facility they're using hasn't got an assembly point, look at the area yourself, pick your own, and tell your own people that's where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best one I found was when we did the district conference one at the Hilton at the Hampshire Cricket Ground, and I followed their instructions to where the assembly point was. And when I read through their risk assessment, the area they'd marked for the assembly point for everybody in the hotel, including all the people who were, I think it was about 750 would have been at the district conference, was right in the middle of the area, which was reserved for all the fire engines and ambulances, which I thought was very handy.
Yeah.
So you put everybody there and then you run them over and you've got the ambulances there already.
Well, it reminds me of when there were terrorist threats. I was working on the Cambridge Science Park, and the assembly point was right in front of a big glass pharmaceutical company building, which was probably the prime target on the site. Anyway. Yes, it's on there. It's on the checklist. I'll put it in, actually. There needs to be signs saying where it is, and when you get there, that you're there. I'm surprised that venues don't have that.
I'm surprised the fire brigade haven't insisted on it.
Yeah.
well, the fire brigade don't test them. The fire brigade don't do the come round to examine them anymore. They haven't done for some years.
Fire brigade don't, but I think you still have to have your alarms and things tested, don't you?
Well, yeah, if the fire brigade are doing the job properly, which is what they should be doing, they're not only testing the fire alarm, fire suppression systems and all the rest of it. But they should also be looking at the evacuation routes just to make sure that, you know, you are getting everybody out as fast as possible.
They don't do it anymore.
Now, I know a lot of fire authorities don't do it, but
No, they don't. No, ours doesn't.
you need to have a private. Lots of private companies have set
Yeah.
up in that place.
Right, yeah, that's right.
But, yeah, it's important to make sure that everybody is out as well. So it's certainly worth, just on that point, getting hold of the risk assessment, because that should all be in it from the venue. And also, of course, if you've got people who are in wheelchairs or impaired mobility, is making sure you get people out. And the whole problem of having not using lifts in emergencies and things like that. So if you're upstairs, you need to just be mindful of how you would actually get people out who are in a wheelchair or who can't walk very well. Okay, that's good. Are there any other questions? Anybody else got their hands up?
So will you be sending out all this stuff
Well, I can send this
as soon as you get it?
Yeah, I'd let me just see if I've got it.
I love your garden.
Wow, I'm opening it on Saturday and Sunday for in the garden scheme, but getting the money for polio. But it's the weather's not playing ball at the moment. Let me very quickly show this one, which I think. Okay, so this was the one we were working from at the compliance meeting, and I just didn't think it was very friendly. Can you see that? So it's just a whole load of questions, and they're not in any great order, to be honest. And so all I've done is actually taken some of those questions and put them all into headings.
It is, yeah.
Trying to group them together. The only one I thought, do you need a emergency egress plan? Well, I think I haven't put that in because, as I say, I think that should be in your venue. And it's covered under how do you get people with impaired mobility out of somewhere. But I think if you've got people that are in wheelchairs, you certainly need to have that, know exactly how you're going to get them out. Seating is quite interesting. I don't know how many people put their own seating out. I thought most venues at the moment wanted to stick to their own protocols and therefore putting the tables out. I have included that. So I just need to see, and that was the last one, that was number 22 of the whole thing about venues and COVID and things. So effectively, what we were working from is exactly the same words in there, more or less. So I can send what I've done out, and we can, if it changes drastically, I'll send out a revised one. But,
I'd say yes, please, to that, Martin. The only thing you haven't covered in there is what do you do in the middle of a meeting if one of your members gets pinged?
Good point.
Send him home.
You've got 15 minutes to get out. You have to be in contact for 15 minutes. And I don't think you get pinged by being in contact with somebody who else has been pinged, actually. You only get pinged by if you're in contact with somebody who turns out to have COVID, I think. I'm sure that's the case. But I would think most people would say, I've got to go. I've got to leave. How many people are turning off their apps?
I turned mine off yonks ago.
You won't get pinged, but you could be carrying COVID.
Well, no, but the thing is, you see, that where the ping thing is wrong is you book into a venue, let's say, as I did the other day, at 12:30. We finished the meeting, came out at about, 1:45. But according to the app, I was there up until midnight.
Ah.
So somebody else could have come at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and tested positive, and they'd have pinged me to say, go home.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't get anywhere near it. Because you can book into a venue, but you can't book out.
We have to turn our phones off, otherwise we get fined.
Yes. And you can turn your Bluetooth off, of course.
Yeah, can I just say that the pinging thing is not the venue QR code. It's actually, the app is actually talking Bluetooth to every phone that's in the vicinity. Doesn't know who it is. But, so it doesn't matter if you haven't registered where you are. It won't know where you are, but it will know that you've been next to somebody that turned out to have COVID. And so it's different from the venue. So there's two parts of the app, which is, I don't think many people realise that actually. So it buys.
Sorry, Martin, are you saying if you turn the Bluetooth off, it doesn't make any difference?
I think if you turn the Bluetooth off, it probably stops it. But if you just don't log into a venue,
yeah,
then that doesn't make any difference.
Right, okay.
As far as I know, yeah. Just one point that has come up actually. Somebody was asking about, well, should we just allow people who've been vaccinated or had, the 2 vaccinations into meetings? And I would discourage that approach. I think for one, it's discriminatory, and there are lots of reasons why people may not have had their vaccinations for medical reasons. And they may not want to disclose that to you, so that then becomes a GDPR issue. And it's a medical information which is protected information. So I think you can say to people, it's really great if you have, and that's good, but you can't go around telling people you're not coming to our meetings unless you've had your vaccinations. Don't know whether that idea crossed anybody's mind, but I think it could lead to difficulties.
Well, that would come surely under discrimination.
I say it's discrimination and GDPR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highcliffe doesn't have that problem because all of us got done in the first wave, I think, because we're all so old.
Well, what about your booster? Well, I think there was somebody who was asking about, can they ask, but strongly discourage that approach. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll send this to everybody that's here now.
Thank you.
You may get a second one when it comes out. It may not even come through me, it might come through Charlie anyway. If not, but then I'll make sure all the clubs get it. I don't think I'm stepping on anybody's toes. And to be honest, the general counsel one is, I think you just need to look at that and take out anything that's the legal requirements, which is really the contact numbers, you know, the rule of 6 and the rule of 30 outside. So those don't strictly apply anymore. You may want to keep some of those, but they don't apply at a legal level anymore. I think, Carol, you were saying you've got your tables well spaced, which is it's carrying in the same kind of theme as before, really.
Yes.
Well, I must admit the two venues we've used or are using, which are the Lord Bute and the Highcliffe Castle Golf Club, they're the ones who set the 1 metre still between the tables.
Okay, I don't
I'm
have
not
anything.
sure whether that's COVID or whether it was for the waitresses, but it worked either way.
Well, you wonder how many things people will keep in place if we ever get back to normal. But yeah, just see. Somebody's asked whether I could send it now. Let me just see. Just seeing if I can get it. So people got that in chat? You got that, Steve?
Yes, yes, I'm just saving it now. Yeah, I'm just saving it now.
So if you go into chat, you can download that file from here, or I'll send it. But sorry, just rather cumbersome way of attaching things on chat. So.
Yeah.
Okay, I can turn this into a recording if you want and send you the link. But it's really just to share ideas and go through things. Are there any other questions? Okay. So that's all I had. I say it was a bit disappointing. I hadn't got the documents that I was expecting, but it's just given me a bit more freedom perhaps to put my checklist out on the table. So I doubt whether anything will come, any other points will come up. But if there are things that people think, oh, that should have been on that list, please do say, and we'll put it on, because I think it might be quite a useful document just to have, you know, every now and again to look at and think, you know, am I up to speed with everything? And we've got things in place that we should have in place. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you.
No. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, thanks
Thank
so
you,
much,
Martin.
everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
I hope nobody comes in at 7:45 saying it's a drop in till 8 o'clock. It happened once. It actually came in at 5 to 8 and said, where is everybody?
Well.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
I'll say
much,
that, Martin, is
Goodbye,
thank you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you once again and good night.
Thank you, Martin, very much
Bye,
indeed.
everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks.
See
Bye.
you soon, all of you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Then, Nigel, is that? All right.